Damiano Palmegiani.
Damiano Palmegiani.
Palmegiani.
Damiano Palmegiani.
Damiano Palmegiani.
Palmegiani.
Here's Damiano Palmegiani, who rips one deep down the left field line.
Well, that was a 91-mile-per-hour fastball.
And it's a grand slam! Damiano Palmegiani.
A high drive to deep left field. This ball is gone! Palmegiani gives the Fisher Cats a 9-8 lead.
All right, so today we have Toronto Blue Jays prospect, Damiano Palmegiani. I'm going to call you Demi. I've always called you Demi. Welcome to our podcast, and we appreciate you coming on. And you have a very interesting story because I have kind of like a coaching background where I got to see you at such a young age and kind of see you develop over the years. And for me, I followed your story, followed you through college baseball, minor league baseball. And what I love about your story is that you've dealt with so much adversity, right? So I want to kind of talk about that, and because I think it's very valuable to the younger generation to see kind of like your perspective and what you've been through throughout the last few years. So going back where I first met you, you're a 16-year-old kid. Begg was actually part of that coaching staff. We were both coaching the junior national team at that time. I don't know if you remember, but your first trip was in the fall of 2016, which was, I guess, seven or so years ago, and that's when I first seen you play, right? So moving directions to that, as a 16-year-old kid, how was it like, I guess, putting on that Team Canada uniform for the first time?
Yeah, it was, I remember it clear as day. It was 2016 ESPN, where the Braves used to play. And, I mean, when you're growing up in Canada and you know what the junior national team is, you know the history behind it, the players, you know, how it's kind of like it propels you into college and pro and whatnot. So it's something you want to do. So I remember it was like a few months before that trip. It was T12, and I was lucky enough to make that team. I was one of the younger guys on my team with British Columbia, and I was coming off a pretty good summer, and I knew there was like a possibility. You know, nobody was really in my ear telling me, but I knew like if I perform, like they could invite me out to the junior national team, and we'll go from there. So yeah, T12 went great. It's the future showcase is what it's today, and I remember Greg called me, and like one morning a couple weeks after that told me, you know, invited me out to the junior national team. And as a kid, like, and it's totally fair to think so, is that it's like a dream come true. It's like you feel like, oh, like the peak of your baseball career. You know what I mean? It's like getting called up. That's the biggest thing. Yeah, it's the biggest thing at the time, and which it is. It's awesome. And I remember super excited. I felt like I made it. You know, I felt you know, I called my parents and stuff, kind of like one of those situations, and get there, and it was surreal, you know, and it's cool. I was happy that you know, I still get the memories on my phone of like, you know, when you take a snap and you save it, and then it shows up a couple of years, and it comes up, and I took a lot of pictures of the locker room and stuff like that. I was sending it to my buddies, but yeah, really cool. I'm glad I soaked it all in that deeply, and then and then it was, you know, then you start to realize how it works and how you have to, you know, how the real work of it is and what it is, and I think it's awesome. I think once you get past that like excitement of it and you realize what you can do with it and how you can grow, learn and succeed and stuff like that, I think was awesome.
Yeah, so I remember you like I said, 16 years old at the time. Very raw. Like, I remember this guy can play. Obviously, you're there. Anybody who makes the junior national team, you got to be a dude, right? So I remember you're super raw, had a lot of power. I think the speed of the game might have been very quick for you at the time, rightfully so, 16-year-old. kid, but I remember the hands were there, the power potential was there. You were probably 150, 160 pounds maybe at the time. So
40 pounds
what are
ago.
you now? Right
Like 220.
Yeah,
That was
so
like 60 pounds ago.
Yeah, massive difference. But that's what I remember about you, saying this guy's going to be very, very interesting in the near future. We'll see how his development goes. But I remember that's what, like, it was clear as day that this guy has massive power potential, right? Because you've seen it in your swing. I've talked with your coach before, Les McTavish, as well, Vauxhall program. Shout out to the Vauxhall program.
Coach Matt.
Out in Alberta. Yeah, that was a big part of, I guess, your development. Beggar, what do you remember about Damiano when you seen him?
So I remember, like, I came in, I wasn't a mainstay on that staff at that time.
Yeah.
I came in 2017 just as an extra coach or assistant coach or whatever before the World Championship in Thunder Bay. And I was actually coaching first base.
Right.
And, Mike Johnson was the pitching coach.
Yep.
Right.
And so I remember seeing you, and you were a guy, I think you were playing some third base, and, maybe limited a little bit in your defensive ability there. And I think we might have tried you out in left field too. I think you were out there a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it was like Cho and I were just talking beforehand. It's like we had, Willow at short, and like Bremner, Dondre was around the field, and we had Lucas
Adam
Parente
Hall.
left. Yeah. So it was like, so there wasn't just a true fit, right? And it was it was the same thing. It was like you didn't have the size that you do now. So you didn't have all that power then. So the bat wasn't fully developed and everything. And then ultimately, like at the end of the day, we had to let you go, right? And then the other guys made it, which is like I never played on the junior team myself, so I was a late developer as well. I think probably as kind of you were until said college, right? But that was my thing. Everything hadn't clicked yet, but there was definitely like something there. Just didn't know, and it was like we didn't know what position it was going to be at that point.
Yeah. So to put it into context, the way the junior national team schedule is like, at that time when his first trip, it was like in the fall. So you're a 16-year-old kid playing against Instructs. So instructional league, for those that don't know, these are your minor league players. Sometimes, single A, double A guys even go to Instructs to work on things. So you're a 16-year-old kid playing against them. Then February
and after they
comes,
had a long season too.
Yeah, after they had they're all game ready.
Right.
This is our off season, and then February comes around. It's like, by the way, you're playing the Toronto Blue Jays MLB team, in Dunedin,
and all you've done is swing indoors for the last 6 months.
Yeah, then you're seeing 90 plus every single day, and then you continue that trip to like Florida, Orlando, ESPN in April, and then Dominican in May, facing the Dominican Summer League.
Guys throwing 100 with not knowing where it's going.
It's not. Just to put into context, this schedule is ruthless, but for the purpose of exposing kind of like your weaknesses at a higher speed level. So I'm just throwing it out there to put it into context.
Yeah, and that I do like what you said, because I wanted to touch on that, was the speed of the game.
Right.
Like at that time in high school and all that, obviously as you go up, the speed, regardless of where you go up from, early high school to senior year high school, grade 12, all that, senior PBL. But I had a pretty good grasp on how to play my game and how to, make the most of what I'm in and play up to higher levels and whatnot in that space of the level I was at in Canadian high school baseball.
Right.
And when I got to the junior national team that year in 2016, I remember the first time that I really didn't have control of the speed. The first time and it's, it happens all the time. People experience it all the time, the speed of the game.
Right.
And I'm glad I experienced it at 16, is that very real, like you think you're in control, or you're like, okay, like I'll just do my breath work, trust my swing, and let's go. But in baseball, when shit's moving quick, and whether you're in the box and you're seeing pitches you've never seen before, or you just think like, whoa, like I can't recognize load, swing, everything how I'm used to. It has to be dialed up, or ground balls are being hit to you in ways that you're not used to or comfortable with. That's where I really had to learn through failure. I mean, I was young. I wish I had all the mental skills and stuff that I've developed now, but learn through error, through frustration, all that. That's a very real thing. And that's I think that's the best part of the junior national team program. the only thing that players need to realize is that it's meant to be challenging and frustrating. As long as you don't bury yourself in frustration and whatever, which I think I did at times, there is some good that comes of, trial by fire. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm glad you touched on that. That's the very first time that I, and still experience it, at any level, but we're more well equipped for it now. Like, speed of the game changing. What, how can I adjust, or what are my methods to slow it down and stuff like that. So I love that you mentioned that, because that's huge. Yeah. So
Beggar mentioned that, like, we're planning to take a roster to Thunder Bay for the World Championships, and obviously, we had to cut it down to was it 18 men, 20 man roster. And your name unfortunately wasn't picked, but I want to know your, like, the transition from that moment to kind of like Cal State Northridge, because Cal State Northridge is a pretty good Division I program, and you got to get a scholarship there. Right. I want to talk about kind of like, what was your mental transition from, I guess, dealing with a lot of adversity to kind of getting to that spot in Cal State Northridge. Right.
So I could talk leading up to that, to Northridge, like a lot of less than ideal things happened through also some really cool things that happened. So it was a weird but awesome kind of, up and down in my I guess end of my high school career. It was like you just said, that was my first year with the junior national team, and I was one of the younger guys going through the whole thing, and I knew that I had to fight my way in. I knew there wasn't, I had to force my way into a spot and whatnot. And, ultimately, I did all I could, and I just wasn't there yet. And there's no ill feeling behind that. I understand. No,
it's for a reason, because we put you guys in that situation for a reason, right?
Exactly. So I didn't make it, all respect to Greg and Team Canada and all that. I was cheering them on, watching all the games. But I knew, like, okay, like, that feeling, I don't want it again. I know what I did. I know what I could improve on. I know what I need to get better at. And that, I think that's where that first little step was taken to that a little bit of later development that we talked about. Right. And then I think what's important to mention too, before I even got to Cal State Northridge, was that second year with Team Canada, when I was the older, one of the older guys. Yeah. So they went to Thunder Bay, competed their butts off. It was awesome to watch. Super proud of all the guys. And then it was over, and the year started again. Right. Guys moved on to college, Julian Hall, or college or pro ball, and we were left with the younger guys. So I came back right away. I was back in the mix, and now we're competing for the qualifiers in Panama. Panama, right?
Yeah, it was Panama.
Yeah,
Chitre, Panama. We talk about this trip, how we love it.
Yeah, exactly. And that year was like, okay, obviously Greg brings me back. We have a good relationship, not even just now, before, even at that moment, all respect, brings me back, tells me, he wants me to be a big part of this team for this year moving forward. It's still a big year in Panama, and go through the whole few months again. This time I'm kind of more pushed into the mix, into one of the more key guys on the team, which feels awesome. So, through that, another set of issues come around, which is, like how to handle a leadership role, how to, lead by example, not putting too much pressure on yourself now. Before it was like, all right, like let's just, shock the team a little bit. Let's get in there and be like some guy that's kind of just trying to make his way in and prove yourself. Now it's like, hey, no, they look at you and you need to get it done. And that had his own sets of issues that I had to deal with, and it wasn't a good year. It was, there were some really good moments in it that I was super proud of. But there was bad times where, again, getting down on yourself, not showing what you want to show, and made it all. And it was the same thing. I made it all the way to the selection camp going into Panama. And I'll never forget this, because I think this was a huge moment that I still kind of look back on. Was we were leaving Dominican to get on the flight back home to then meet again in selection camp 3 months later, 3 months later. And Greg pulled me aside. And I just had a pretty good Dominican with some bad moments. Like I had really good offensively, but I kind of was struggling in the outfield. That was my main spot. And he told me like, hey, you're going to come back to the selection camp, because they still had to make some cuts for that. So he assured me, you're going to come back to the selection camp and you're competing for that first base DH job that we think you can get. Like you go out there, you show us that, you know, you can be the bat that you are, and you can play some first base. Like, we want you to be on this Panama team, but you got to earn it in selection camp. All right, thank you, Greg. Like, appreciate it. I know what I got to do. And then, so we go to the selection camp, and, you know, doesn't go well. Like I just said, putting pressure on yourself, trying to do stuff, trying to do more than what I was really asked to do.
Right.
And so ultimately it ended, and I knew like, I didn't separate myself very well. There's some younger guys that you know, may be worth the time investment of taking them. And I remember that night, it was the day before we either go to Panama or you go home. And I'm sitting in my hotel room and got a call. You know, Greg wants me to go up to his room, and we had a good talk for, you know, 20, 30 minutes. I didn't make it.
I remember that. That's why I bring these up, because I was the one witnessing all this and I seen the hurt and frustration, but my whole thing was, you use that as fuel, man. You use that as fuel. So like for me, I was just because the talent was there. It had nothing to do with your talent. It was more so, it's like we have limited spots, right? So fast forward to kind of like I want to talk about college baseball, because this is where now the lessons you've learned with the experience that you got exposed with, applying that into a Division I setting, right? And now again, you deal with some adversity. Exactly.
And I wish I could say like that moment, you know, where me and Greg had that moment of okay, like, thank you, I understand. Like I need to get better at some things and go, and I'm going to take it into college. I wish that moment right there was like, boom, turning point. Like, you know, ultimate fuel under me, and I'm going to go to college, and it's all just going to click, and that's how it's going to go. But, you know, it's a step-by-step process. It takes little things over and over to really kickstart. And I wouldn't say I lost confidence, but I wouldn't say I had that fire under me too. I was just kind of like, for a moment, I allowed myself to like label myself a little bit, like, okay, like, you know, like I'm just kind of working on things, and I can be somewhat of a difference maker, but ultimately, like, you know, I get in my own way at times, and that's just how it is. Go into college and just get slapped in the face, you know. I want to work hard, and I worked hard, and I did all the extra reps and all that, but when it came time to be a man and put it together on the field, I was lost. I just, you know, I was like,
So from that point, like when you were at Northridge, you transferred to Southern Nevada, and you hit like 389 with 26 bombs. Like that's like total opposite of kind of like what we're talking about here. So let's talk about the transition from that failing point for the third time, I guess, that we talked about to how did you change that narrative?
Yeah, the one thing that never changed in me at all was I love the work, you know. Even in high school, because I had good moments in high school too. Like I was good in you know, the spaces I played in. I love the work, and I thought that if I just put in the work, I take the extra time, I stay longer than everyone else, that the results would just automatically come. And that's where I was wrong. It's not always just you put in the work and it's automatic. There's two sides to it. You put in that work, and then you start trusting that work, and you start just letting the game come to you instead of trying to go chase the game because you work so hard. And I try so hard. I'm sweating in practice, like in the game, like I'm just going to work just as hard. You know what I mean? No, that's where you got to let the work speak for itself. So in Northridge, like I said, I never stopped working. The failure didn't come through getting lazy.
Right?
It came through just being in my head.
Right.
And so ultimately the difference maker was that moment after my freshman year where I knew like I was going to transfer, like nothing against the coaching staff I had or anything, but I just knew like I'm going to change the scenery. I'm going to go somewhere more comfortable. I knew Southern Nevada used wood bat, and I always liked using wood a little more than metal, especially because in Canada, we use wood, throughout the whole year. And it was actually that COVID like time off where I knew I was going to Southern Nevada, but there's all this time off and I didn't know exactly when I was going to go, but I just knew I was out of the one setting and I was going to a brand new one. And that whole off season of uncertainty, working by yourself, all these facilities being closed is where I was like, I'm going to come in and like, I'm going to dictate my identity, like how I'm viewed, how the kind of worker I am. I'm not just going to be the guy who works hard. I'm going to be the guy who leads by example off the field, like with the work, and then goes into the game and just gets it done. I'm going to be reliable. And I think all that time off with family, with my friends, and just kind of like really realizing that like this is a kind of a career making year. Like, I'm not really the guy that I used to be. Like I wasn't not regarded as this baseball player that I used to be coming out of high school. I'm kind of like floating. And that was awesome to me. I think that was the difference maker right there, was just like I stopped caring so much about what happens, because I had already been through worst case scenario a few times, that I was just like, I'm going to have fun with, because as much fun as I have doing this on my own, now I'm just going to do it with a uniform on, and I don't really care what happens.
Is that when you put the weight on too?
What's
Is that when you got big?
That was already happening in Northridge. We had our freaking buffet there. And I wasn't really playing every day either, so I was able to just kind of load it all up and that year right there was huge, because all that time off and I really wanted to make sure I came in and had control of my identity, So I was like, every single day I'm gonna do something that's gonna make me better. So all that put together.
So when did you turn into the power hitter?
The bat speed was always there.
Yeah,
like we said, when I was 16 years old, when I went to the bat speed was always there. And the problem was everybody always told me, your bat speed plays, let it play. Cause I always had power. I was always really wiry. And that got in my own way, because it was, I'm going to disregard the approach and show off the swing and the speed. And that's like the worst thing you can do in the box is speed up. You know what I mean? Right. So in learning how to use my bat speed and create more length in the zone and understand how my power plays, mixed in with, obviously I was getting a lot more physical too. That just made my margin for error way bigger, and it allowed the power that I would show in batting practice to translate in an actual game now. So I wasn't even trying to be a power hitter, honestly. When I went to Southern Nevada, my goal was to hit 400. I was like, I'm going to hit 400. And then as I started to work and I got in and I realized how I was doing in the fall, my goal turned into, I'm going to break Harper's record. Like he had 31 that year. I was like, no, I'm breaking his record. Like I'm going to do it, and nobody knows who I am, and everyone's going to be shocked, you know? So, and that at that moment, that's when I was like, this is my profile. Like I always thought you had to be, a beast. Like I always thought you had to be, like, I know I'm pretty good in size now, but like I always thought you had to be like 6'5", like look like freaking Tyler O'Neill, like what I mean? Like that's what I thought you had to look like to be a power hitter, and that's not it at all. I mean, obviously that is as well, like that helps, but that I learned, like, and especially now when I'm in pro ball, I see around like, it's all about being wiry, quick, and margin for error, and it plays, so that's. So
it sounds like all the adversity that you've dealt with, it finally clicked at that moment when you started realizing, okay, this is how it works. This is why I went through it. My mindset shifting, right? And obviously enough so, you've been drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays twice. Once out of high school, and then they followed up out of Southern Nevada, which is why you're playing professional baseball today. They've always believed in you, and obviously you've proven yourself in the minors now, and it's that continuation, even going to the Arizona Fall League this offseason and winning a championship, always learning new experiences from that is ultimately who that future version of Demi is. You won't know, but you're in the process and in that journey of dealing with adversity, dealing with failure, and then getting better from it. And I think that message itself is a lost art, because every successful person knows that if you want to be a champion in the end, it's not an easy road. And for me being able to witness that perspective is why, for me personally, even though we didn't stay in touch, I'm like, you guys don't understand where this kid was when he was 16, how hard he worked, the amount of failure he had to overcome, because we all believed in the ability. It's just most of the time, I would say 99.9%, I would even say 100% of the time, there's no one who is successful in baseball that didn't go through the heartbreak, the failure, literally tears, right? I've had a lot of tear moments in baseball, and people don't understand that. They think they see you, especially now, you're a prospect in the Blue Jays organization. We look forward to seeing you in Toronto, right? So that's what kids see. So it's like this perspective, I think, is crucial to kind of say, this is actually why he is the person he is today, right?
That's my biggest thing. I love talking about, how everybody's path is a little different. But I think the most important thing is we're talking about failure, and we're talking about getting humbled in situations and tears and stuff like that. And we're almost making it out to seem like it's like this bad thing. It's like, hey, it's going to be a bad thing. It's going to suck, which it does. But what I encourage younger guys, and I try to talk to anyone I talk to that's in, high school, in my shoes when I was a little younger, it's like you learn to, because I learned to appreciate it. Learn to appreciate the grit and the grind. Appreciate being overlooked. Don't be so quick to compare yourself to these guys aren't getting overlooked. They're all going to, don't be so quick to turn your head and start pointing fingers when it comes to adversity. Learn to appreciate it. It's okay to be overlooked. It's okay to not make a team. It's okay to have a bad summer. It's okay as long as you understand the grit and grind of it and you don't give up on who you are. Once you start allowing these labels to actually become you and live through that, then you have a little problem. But if you take it on the chin and you say, thank you for telling me what I need to get better at. This is a wake-up call. I'm still who I am, and I'm going to prove it to you next time I get a chance. That's the biggest part. Appreciate that. Don't just, fold. Never just fold, It's
I
a
love
good
that.
thing.
I mean, that's such an important message for the youth, future Canadians or even Americans all across the world. It's like that's part of baseball development. And some people develop when they're 16, 17. Some people develop and see their full potential. Even ex-teammates like Denzel Clark, we mentioned him. It's like you didn't see his potential. I don't think you still see his potential yet, right? And that's the same with you. It's like you're on that journey. So I personally have dealt with a lot of failure, so I appreciate that. Me being now 41 years old, and I'm sure Beggar's up there too. But how much failure did you deal with?
I mean, most of my career was failure. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm in this seat, not this seat.
Those who can't do teach. That's what the famous Jack Black said in School of Rock.
Those that can't do, teach. Those that can't teach gym. Am I right?
There you go.
But no, that's for me, that's why I wanted you specifically on this, because I thought it was an important thing that I wanted to put on my personal podcast. I know we did the Apo Taco podcast with Begg and Willow. So this was special for me because I've witnessed firsthand the sweat and tears that you've put in, even though I'm sitting on the sidelines, part as a coach. I know we had a lot of conversations as a coach player when you were playing with the junior national team. And now the fact that you represented Canada again in the WBC, right? Can you tell us about that kind of like moment for you?
Yeah. I knew going into the World Baseball Classic that that rosters were being constructed, and I knew I had a chance to go in with Canada, given the pieces they had and their needs. And Greg called. It was nice to talk to him again.
That's a good call to get, man. That's always a good call.
Yeah, and he was very honest and clear about the role. Like I was gonna be a bench guy to come in and help in whatever way needed, and play behind some guys. And I was bought in. Like I get it. I understand. We're playing for something way bigger than ourselves. So if you want me to be a supporting guy to the guys who are gonna start, I'm gonna give you the best I got, and if I get my name called, you're not gonna regret it. And I was super happy to get to do that, put on the uniform, do it with some of my best friends around me that I had in the junior national team. You said Denzel Clark, Bo Naylor, Dasan, all these guys. And it was a great experience. I mean, regardless of how it turned out, of playing time, that doesn't matter at all. It's what it represents. And so happy to do it. Getting to put on the Team Canada jersey for the World Baseball Classic I'm never going to forget that. And, I think we're already competitive, and in years to come, I truly believe it's going to get better and better and better. And watch out. I think we're going to make it out of the group stage.
No, and I think that's what is exciting is when we watch it from a fan perspective. We see Dasan Brown, yourself, Owen Casey, Bo Naylor, Josh Naylor, even Miles Naylor,
Denzi,
Edward
Mitch
Julian, Mitch Bratt. The list goes on of young stads, right? Matt Brash,
Eric
Sarantola. The list goes on and on. Liam Hicks now, like
so many guys.
David McCabe.
Good
Lord.
You could,
the future is bright, I think, in my opinion. So it's I'm excited for the World Baseball Classic in the future. There's more coverage around it. But for me, it's I appreciate you taking the time, sharing your insights for this, and we're looking forward to the next World Baseball Classic, because by then your career will have developed even more, and your perspectives will be even different. And maybe next time we'll get your perspective then when you're a big leaguer.
Yeah, we'll see. It's everybody's on the path to make Canada super competitive, so I'm just excited to see what happens in 3 years from now.
Awesome.